Have you ever felt that your awareness went too far, that you saw something your mind wasn't built to hold? Jung warned that expanding consciousness is not a gentle ascent, but a dangerous crossing. Most people live within the boundaries of normal perception, protected by the filters that keep reality bearable. But when those filters tear, when you begin to perceive what lies beyond them, something irreversible happens. The mind cannot unsee. The soul cannot go back to sleep. At first, the revelation feels divine. The sudden clarity, the flood of insight, the dizzying sense that everything connects. You see patterns in chaos, meaning behind coincidence, energy behind form. But soon, the light becomes blinding. The more you see, the more unstable the world appears. What was once solid begins to shimmer and dissolve. Time bends, identity fractures. You realize that the line between sanity and revelation is thinner than anyone admits. Crossing the limit of ordinary consciousness isn't madness, it's exposure. You've stepped beyond the collective dream that defines reality, and now you must face what exists without its protection. It is awe and terror intertwined, the ecstasy of truth and the grief of losing the comfort of ignorance. Most turn back at this point, numbing the mind, retreating into distraction. But for some, the crossing cannot be undone. They are called to walk between worlds, to translate the invisible into the language of the living. If that path calls to you, tread carefully. Illumination without grounding becomes fragmentation. Truth must be integrated, not consumed. Before we go further, pause and breathe. Check if you're subscribed to this channel. This journey is not for everyone. Like this video if you've ever felt you've gone too far into your own mind, and tell me in the comments, have you ever crossed a line in consciousness that you couldn't return from? Most people live within invisible walls, built not of stone but of agreement. Jung called this the consensus of consciousness, a collective contract that defines what is real, what is sane, and what must remain unseen. The ordinary mind exists inside this borderland, where perception is filtered through logic, habit, and fear. It's a safe illusion, one that protects the fragile ego from the vastness of what lies beyond. To cross that line is to risk everything that makes you normal. The border is subtle. It's the moment between dream and waking, between intuition and reason, that faint shimmer where another reality almost reveals itself. You've felt it before, the chill of déjà vu, the voice in your thoughts that isn't entirely yours, the way a symbol in a dream feels more real than waking life. These are glimpses of the unconscious, signals from the deeper strata of the psyche. Most people dismiss them. Jung did not. He believed that the human mind is an island floating on an ocean of mystery, and that awakening begins the moment the tides start to rise. The ordinary mind fears this ocean. It wants order, definition, boundaries, but the psyche is vaster than our structures of meaning, and when awareness begins to expand, those structures crack. You start to sense that logic alone cannot contain life. The borders of consciousness are not lines to defend, but thresholds to cross. Yet this crossing must be conscious. To rush into the unknown without preparation is to drown in it. Jung warned that what liberates one soul can destroy another. The border of the ordinary mind is there for a reason, not to imprison you but to prepare you. Only when the ego learns humility can it survive the sea it once denied. To approach the edge of the known is not rebellion, it's evolution. But to step across it, that requires reverence. When the walls of ordinary consciousness begin to dissolve, reality no longer behaves. Jung called this the collision with the autonomous psyche, the moment when the inner world erupts into the outer, and the line between them vanishes. Symbols come alive, dreams bleed into waking hours, meaning multiplies until it overwhelms logic. You're no longer observing the psyche, you're living inside it. And for a time, it feels like madness. Everything that once seemed stable, identity, time, causality, begins to bend. You watch your thoughts materialize as coincidence. The world starts mirroring your emotions. You realize that what you used to call objective reality was just a shared hallucination, one the collective mind agreed to maintain. When that illusion breaks, you see the scaffolding underneath, consciousness itself, dreaming everything into being. It's beautiful, but unbearable. This collapse is both revelation and disorientation. The ego, which once felt like the center, is suddenly revealed as a fragment in a vaster intelligence. You're forced to confront a truth that no philosophy can soften. You are not separate from what you perceive. The dreamer and the dream are one. For Jung, this stage was sacred but perilous. To experience the autonomy of the unconscious without grounding in the body or community can dissolve the mind. He warned that the psyche, when uncontained, behaves like a storm, creative and destructive at once. In those moments, everything you believed about the real world becomes transparent. The structures of thought collapse like mist in sunlight. What remains is awe, the naked encounter with existence as it is, infinite, fluid, terrifyingly alive. Crossing into this territory changes you forever. You can rebuild your world, but you'll always know it's made of light and dream. There is a point in awakening where illumination turns into fire. What begins as revelation can quickly become disorientation. Jung warned that the greatest danger for those who expand consciousness too quickly is inflation, mistaking the vastness of the psyche for personal divinity. When the ego identifies with the light, it has merely glimpsed. Madness is not far behind. The soul bursts into brilliance, but without roots it burns itself out. To see more than the human mind can integrate is to walk a razor's edge. You begin to feel chosen, special, perhaps even prophetic. Symbols follow you. Coincidences bloom like omens. Reality seems to rearrange itself around your awareness. It feels transcendent until it turns frightening. The higher you rise without grounding, the thinner the air becomes. The body tires, the mind fragments. The ego, unable to hold the infinite, begins to mistake confusion for revelation. Jung described this state as possession by the archetype. The divine floods through a psyche not yet prepared to receive it. What should have been transformation becomes inflation. Consciousness expanding faster than humility can follow. The light, unbalanced by darkness, blinds instead of illuminates. The antidote is not to close your eyes, but to root yourself deeply in the ordinary. Eat, breathe, walk, touch the world. The divine does not demand that you escape humanity. It demands that you embody it consciously. Enlightenment without embodiment is delusion. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by awareness, if the truth you discovered began to consume instead of free you, know that you are not failing. You are learning the sacred rhythm of awakening. The light must descend into the body before it becomes wisdom. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt the weight of insight pulling you away from the world you live in? Every true awakening is a crossing, not through space but through perception. Jung described it as the moment when the ego, the small conscious self, confronts the vastness of the self, the total psyche, the divine center within. It feels like standing at the threshold between worlds, the human and the infinite, the known and the unknowable. The air changes. Time stretches. You sense that behind everything you've ever experienced, something immense has been watching through your eyes. In that instant you realize you are not the dreamer. You are the dream being dreamed by something greater. The boundaries of identity blur. Thoughts that once felt personal now seem to belong to the universe itself. Emotion becomes energy. Silence feels sentient. The ego trembles before the immensity of its own source. This crossing is not peaceful. It's overwhelming. The psyche expands faster than words can contain. The familiar world fades into symbol. A bird becomes an omen. A storm becomes a mirror. Your own heartbeat becomes the pulse of the cosmos. Jung knew this was the territory of the archetypes, the primordial forces that shape all human experience. To touch them consciously is to touch the blueprint of existence itself. But this revelation demands reverence. The infinite does not flatter the ego, it dissolves it. You cannot possess the self, you can only surrender to it. Many resist, trying to hold on to both worlds at once, but eventually something must yield. The ego bows, the self rises, And in their union, a new kind of consciousness is born. The crossing leaves you changed forever. You carry its light like a scar, and its silence like a secret. You can never again pretend to be small, but you must still learn to live as human. After crossing the invisible line, the greatest challenge is not awakening, it's returning. Jung knew that the descent into the unconscious is only half the journey. The other half is integration, carrying what was, found in the depths back into ordinary life without losing your mind to it. The abyss opens to everyone who seeks truth, but few learn how to climb out of it whole. The abyss is not a place of punishment, it's the space between who you were and who you are becoming. It strips away illusion, leaving you face to face with everything that doesn't fit your idea of self. Here, the light you found becomes shadowed, the divine becomes heavy, and silence echoes with questions that have no answers. You feel suspended between worlds, no longer asleep but not yet fully awake. Integration is the art of building a bridge between them. It means grounding insight in daily acts, washing dishes with awareness, speaking truth with humility, loving with presence. The revelations from the deep are not meant to stay there. They must take form through action, compassion, and embodiment. Without this translation, awakening decays into fragmentation, a brilliance too bright for human eyes. Jung warned that many seekers mistake the abyss for enlightenment. They cling to visions, inflate their importance, and lose touch with reality. True integration is quieter. It's not about declaring transcendence, but about living with gentleness after surviving the storm. The abyss doesn't disappear, it becomes part of you, a reminder of where the surface ends and depth begins. You learn to walk its edge gracefully, knowing that balance, not escape, is the mark of maturity. To return from the abyss is not to leave it behind, but to carry its silence inside you, as strength, as humility, as peace. Those who have crossed the inner threshold never truly return unchanged. Jung understood that encounters with the unconscious leave traces on the soul, subtle, indelible marks that no mask can hide. After you've seen the machinery behind appearances, the world no longer feels solid. You still walk, work, laugh, and speak, but a quiet distance follows you. It's not detachment, it's recognition. You've seen the dream for what it is. This mark is both blessing and burden. On one hand, you carry a new depth of perception, a sensitivity that reads beneath words and gestures, a silent awareness of what people hide from themselves. On the other, this same sensitivity isolates you. Ordinary conversation feels like pretending. The small dramas that once consumed you now seem like shadows flickering on a wall. You love people more, yet connect less. The heart expands, but the mouth grows quiet. You may try to forget, to return to the comfort of simplicity, but what has been seen cannot be unseen. The mind might long for ignorance, yet the soul refuses it. The images, the dreams, the strange coincidences, they linger, whispering that reality is larger than any explanation. You realize that seeing too much is not about knowledge, it's about transformation. Jung wrote that enlightenment comes with a wound, and that the wound itself becomes the channel through which wisdom flows. You begin to understand that your unease is not illness but initiation. The psyche must stretch to contain what it has witnessed. If you felt this mark, this haunting sense of seeing differently, you're not alone. It's the signature of the crossing, the proof that consciousness has expanded. Tell me in the comments, what in you changed forever after seeing reality without its mask? After the vastness of the inner journey, the hardest task is not awakening, it's returning. Jung wrote that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Yet once that light has pierced you, how do you live again among the ordinary? How do you bring infinity back into a world built on clocks, jobs, and conversations that skim the surface of existence? The return to the human is the most sacred act of awakening. At first, it feels like shrinking. After touching the infinite, daily life seems unbearably small. Washing dishes, paying bills, saying hello, they all feel hollow, stripped of meaning. But gradually you begin to see that the divine never left. It was hidden in the simple gestures all along. The true mystic does not escape the world, they see through it. Every face becomes a mirror of the self. Every moment, an echo of eternity. Jung understood that individuation, the process of becoming whole, ends not in transcendence, but in integration. The awakened must learn to be human again, to laugh, to feel, to stumble, to forgive. Awareness. Without humanity becomes arrogance. Spirituality without embodiment becomes illusion. The return grounds the light so it can illuminate rather than burn. You begin to value imperfection, the trembling voice, the flawed attempt, the fleeting joy. You realize that divinity is not opposed to humanity, it expresses itself through it. The sacred doesn't demand you to rise above life. It asks you to inhabit it fully, to love it with eyes open. The return to the human is not a fall from grace. It's grace finding a form. The miracle was never leaving the ordinary world. It was learning to see it as extraordinary. When revelation ends, what remains is not triumph. It is silence. After the storm of awakening, the psyche no longer seeks answers. It has seen too much to believe in final truths. Jung understood that the mind cannot live forever in the blaze of illumination. It must return to shadow, to rhythm, to stillness. This is the sacred quiet that follows insight. Not emptiness, but integration. The silence after revelation is not absence. It's presence without noise. In this silence, words lose their urgency. You no longer need to explain or defend what you know. You sense that truth cannot be spoken, only lived. The inner dialogues fade, replaced by a listening that feels infinite. You begin to hear life itself breathing, in wind, in laughter, in the pauses between thoughts. What once felt like a void now feels like communion. The world continues its chaos, the same arguments, ambitions, and illusions, but you no longer need to fix it. The awakened no longer fight the dream, they participate in it consciously. You start to understand that existence is not a problem to solve, but a mystery to witness. Sometimes this silence feels heavy, even lonely. You miss the drama of seeking, the intoxication of discovery, but eventually, even longing quiets. You learn to rest in the unknowing, to let awareness expand without control. The silence itself becomes your teacher, your temple, your home. Jung called this stage the evening of life, not in years but in consciousness, the soft twilight where wisdom replaces fire. You don't lose the light, it simply stops blinding you. The silence after revelation is not the end of the path. It is the pause before becoming whole, the stillness through which the soul finally learns to breathe. To cross the limits of consciousness is to lose the comfort of certainty forever. Jung knew that awakening is not a linear ascent toward light, but a spiral through death and rebirth. Every revelation costs something: stability, belonging, the illusion of safety. You can't go that deep and remain the same. The one who returns from the depths is quieter, slower, more real, carrying both the wound and the wisdom that light leaves behind. The price of going too far is the loneliness of clarity. You see through things others still believe in. You watch people chase meaning in illusions you've already buried. Yet, the gift hidden within that solitude is profound: compassion. Having faced your own shadow, you can no longer condemn anyone for theirs. You learn to walk among the sleeping without arrogance, to love the dream even as you know it's a dream. The awakened don't speak from superiority. They speak from scars. They've learned that seeing truth doesn't make you powerful. It makes you tender. You realize that reality doesn't need to be conquered or understood. It needs to be witnessed, honored, lived. The self, once distant and divine, begins to pulse quietly through everything you touch. The journey beyond the limits of mind is not about escaping humanity, but embodying it consciously. You stop trying to rise above the world and instead let the world rise through you. Awareness becomes your prayer, humility your strength. And now, as you stand on this side of the threshold, you understand. Going too far was the only way to find yourself. If you've come this far, take a deep breath. Check if you're subscribed. This space exists for those who've crossed invisible lines. Like this video if you've ever felt transformed by what you saw inside, and leave a comment sharing what crossing your own limit has revealed to you. Then, watch the next video, but because awakening never ends, it only deepens.